think Elias Voss was just a pirate with a grudge? No, sir. The man was a storm made of brass, dark magic, and a cold, calculating mind. They called him Hammerhand, and when you hear how he got that name and what he did to get his ship, you'll understand why the sea itself shivers when his shadow crosses the water. After his folks died and the fever settled, Elias was nothing but a broken boy with a bloody stump and a heart full of ash. But he didn't die on that shore. He was found by Dr. Silas Franklin, a brilliant, eccentric inventor who took pity on the lad. Silas bandaged him up, fed him, and set to work building him a miracle. Silas forged a massive, heavy mechanical fist, a hammer of brass and piston-driven iron, powered by gears that hissed and clicked with every movement of Elias' shoulder. To the doctor, it was a gift of healing. To Elias, it was a weapon. From that day on, Elias Voss was dead, and Hammerhand was born. Silas taught Hammerhand everything he knew. The boy learned to draft blueprints, to smelt copper, and to make steam do the work of muscle. But to Hammerhand, science was just a slow walk. He wanted his revenge on the submerger, and he wanted that last fruit of Eden now. Brass and steam weren't fast enough. Then came Amrita. She was a witch, beautiful and sharp as shattered glass. She saw the dark fire burning inside Hammerhand, and instead of throwing water on it, she poured oil. They fell in love, a matching pair of dark souls, and they married under bleeding moon. Amrita taught him the old ways, how to speak to the wind, how to bind spirits, and how to make the physical world bend to a dark will. With Silas's technology in his left hand and Amrita's magic in his right, Hammerhand got to work in the dead of night. He began building his masterpiece, the subwarrior. It was a terrifying, towering suit of deep-sea diving armor, forged of heavy iron to withstand the crushing pressure of the deepest trenches where the Marentites hid. But when they finished the brass and iron shell, it was hollow. It was just a puppet. It had no mind of its own, no spark to make it walk the ocean floor and hunt. Hammerhand needed something that could think, but would never disobey. And that's when they looked at old Dr. Silas. The man who had saved Elias, the man who had built his hand, became the final ingredient. Hammerhand and Amrita drugged the old doctor, laying him out on the metal workshop table. With Amrita chanting the binding runes and Hammerhand operating the soul extraction valves, they tore Silas's very soul from his flesh and forced it, screaming, into the glowing core of the subwarrior. When the machine's optical lenses hissed open, glowing with a dull, eerie light, Silas Franklin was gone. In his place was the subwarrior. It had Silas's brilliant mind, but none of his free will. It was completely, utterly obedient to Hammerhand. Setting the trap, the wet dream. Now Hammerhand had the weapon, the magic, and the monster. All he needed was a ship, and a captain stupid enough not to ask questions about a walking metal diving suit. He heard of a vessel called the Wet Dream, captained by a vile, greasy degenerate named Edward Gaylord. Hammerhand and Amrita arranged a meeting in a dingy port tavern, but Edward was a fool. He took one look at Amrita, laughed in Hammerhand's face, and said he'd only lease them the ship if he got a go at his wife. He didn't even finish the sentence before Hammerhand's brass fist shattered his jaw. They dragged Edward into the shadows and beat him half to death. Hammerhand pinned him to a table, his mechanical hand whirring, and forced the weeping captain to sign a new will. It stated that upon Edward's sudden, tragic death, the Wet Dream would pass entirely to his naive nephew, a young man they called Pegleg. Once the ink was dry, they slit Edward's throat and dumped him in the harbor. They waited. It took a long, quiet month for the law and the lawyers to process the paperwork, but finally, young Pegleg Gaylord was declared the rightful owner of the Wet Dream. Which brings us to a smoky, dimly lit tavern on the docks. Pegleg is sitting at a corner table, nursing a pint of cheap water, trying to figure out how in the world he's going to run a pirate ship, with his first mate leaning in close. The tavern door swings open, letting in the damp salt air, and two figures step out of the fog. One is a beautiful woman with eyes like midnight. The other is a towering man with a heavy, ticking brass hammer where his right hand should be. And they are walking straight toward Pegleg's table.